Michelle Zauner, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with one of the biggest conundrums I found while trying to do research on you, and that is in your bio on Twitter, you say you are Korean. You say this everywhere you go, and yet your stage name is Japanese. And I'd love to know like the creative inspiration behind how you chose your name as a performer on stage.
Sure. It's unfortunately not a very interesting story. I started the band as a side project in 2012 or 2013 with no idea that it would grow into what it is now or that I would ever be talking about my Korean identity so much. And I just saw a picture of Japanese breakfast on the internet and thought, that sounds nice. And so I named my band Japanese breakfast. And yeah, it's unfortunately not the most fitting name, especially now that I've written a book that's so much about Korean food.
You know, you've gone from being a darling in the music scene to now being so many people's favorite writer. You are now a New York Times best-selling author. Congratulations on that. I think your book was #2 on the New York Times bestseller list, right behind George W. Bush. And I think your response to that was my favorite. You said, "Damn George W. Bush and his paintings." But but yet, talk to me about why you thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book about my life. I'm going to write a book about proudly Korean and being proudly Korean and my family. And I think this will resonate with everyone.
I didn't think much about it resonating with anyone, to be honest. It came from such a personal place with such a sense of urgency, I think, to sort of bear the wounds of caretaking and losing someone to illness. And this very unique experience that I went through, which was learning how to cook Korean dishes as a way to commemorate my mother and a way to move past trauma and preserve my cultural heritage.
Yeah, the title in and of itself is beautiful. It's Crying in H Mart. And I love how throughout the book it really is an homage to your Korean heritage and to H Mart itself. Why did you feel like, you know what, this is the title of the book? Because titles I feel always hold so much meaning beyond just what we're reading on the cover.
Yeah, H Mart just became a real refuge for me after my mother passed away. After going to Eugene, Oregon, and living as a caretaker and watching my mother's health deteriorate, I really had a difficult time remembering my mother before she was sick. And that was so heartbreaking to me. And it wasn't until I went to H Mart and I found like a can of sweet red beans that I had this beautiful memory of my mom and I in Seoul every other summer enjoying papingsu, which is like this Korean shaved ice dessert. And I just became addicted to sort of searching for that feeling, such an important way of navigating my grief. And yeah, I just cried a lot in H Mart, and it was a very healing experience for me.
When you were writing this, you have to relive a lot of it. Was that a therapy for you, or did that just reignite a lot of those traumas and that pain that you had previously experienced?
I think it was both. I think as an artist, there's this desire to poke at the wound in this way, but that's sort of the Nick Cave calls it the pact that you make with love. Grief is the pact that you make with love. And I feel like it was really necessary for me to look back at that part of my life and analyze it and understand it and investigate it. And it was ultimately really healing for me. I think I made it a little bit easier for myself by sort of wading in through these more pleasant memories of my childhood and what made my relationship with my mother so interesting. But there was also this part of the book that I felt so upset that I had never read something like this that would have warned me that this is what illness looks like. And I
Wow.
felt this real need to tell everyone and warn everyone that this is what living close to death looks like.
Did you find writing the book helped you forgive your mom for some of the issues that the two of you went through?
Absolutely. I think that even more so, I was able to forgive myself for what I put my mom through in my adolescent years.
Wow.
I think that everyone, a lot of people can relate to that sort of tumultuous adolescence and that struggle for independence. And especially as a young creative trying to find my voice, that was a major point of contention between my mother and I. And so I feel like through writing this book, I found, not only a lot of forgiveness for the way that she felt this need to sort of protect me from this lifestyle and this financial risk and struggle of that, but I also was able to forgive myself for what I put her through. And in the end, I found a lot of success as a creative on my own terms in this way that she never got to never got to see. So I feel like I was able to forgive myself for that in a way as well.
You also had to find your love for being Korean again, and you share that so beautifully in the book. You know, growing up in a community that was predominantly white, you share candidly how you wanted to discard all parts of yourself that could be seen as not white. What was it like, and how would you talk to other young kids in your position who go, I just want to be one of the kids. I don't want to be Korean. I just want to fit in. I don't want to be Asian at all. How did you rediscover your joy and your celebration of yourself and your heritage?
To be honest, I don't feel like I was able to find that until after my mom passed away. And it's my hope that a lot of this sort of younger generation is um, already kind of learning how to celebrate their differences. And a big part of that is the online community and how we're able to share these sort of experiences. Whereas when I was younger, it felt so isolating and like something to shirk. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
like unfortunately I just sort of came into it sort of later. And I guess my advice would be, I hope that people are able to be proud of their background before they sort of come into it a little bit too late, because I'm sure such a pain for my mom to witness me sort of trying to shirk off that part of my identity for quite some time.
You are still in music. You are still an artist. You know, you're going to continue your journey in that realm. The world is going to open up again. You're going to go back out on tour. Do you think that anything you've written in the book will now affect what kind of music you would like to make or how you would write your music? Have you found anything bleeding in from one medium to the other?
Definitely. They're really in conversation with one another. And I feel like after writing my first two records, which were largely about grief and loss, and then an entire book about that experience, I felt really ready to sort of start this new chapter and run to the other spectrum of human experience. So the new album, which comes out on June 4th, is called Jubilee, and it's about joy. And I feel like through the process of writing all this material, I was sort of giving myself permission to really embrace that and feel that and fight for it in my life. And that's what the new album is about.
Oh, I love it. I feel like it's going to be the complete journey. We get to cry with you in H Mart, and then in June, we get to experience some Jubilee. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, and congratulations on writing a truly astounding book.
Thank you so much for having me.